Welcome back, everybody, to These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For. Lorenzo Fontaine here with...
Kevin Horde.
How you doing, man?
Doing well.
We're going to be talking Clone Wars today, Senate Murders. That's Season 2, Episode 15.
Senate Moidas.
Indeed. This episode aired, we got 3 different dates. So we got March 12th, 2010, which aired in Canada first. Then March 13th, 2010, that aired in the UK. Then a week later, on March 19th, 2010, it aired in the US of A.
That's so weird. And I just thought of this. I should have probably looked up what was going on in the world early March of 2010. But, yeah.
I honestly got nothing.
I got nothing either.
It seems to just be a scheduling thing on each region, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each region to some degree is in control of their own stuff, I guess. But it happens, right?
Yep, I got nothing.
You know, like weird reasons, like when Force Awakens came out in England a week before it came out in the USA.
Which is even weirder.
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing there, so...
But, yeah, I didn't do my job and do the research to find out why, so...
Yeah, from what I saw, the quick research I did, there was no real reason. It just is. It just happened that way. Therefore, moving on, the fortune cookie for this one is searching for the truth is easy, accepting the truth is hard.
And per usual, who said it?
I don't know about this one. This one, I thought about it, and I wasn't sure.
Okay, I've got 2 names for you then.
Okay, go for
it.
it.
The first name that popped into my head, Ahsoka Tano. This feels like something that Ahsoka would say. Mm-hmm. Maybe not season 1 Ahsoka, maybe more like season 5 Ahsoka, like a little more mature, right?
Right, yeah.
I think this episode would like you to believe that it's Padme, but I'm still sticking with like season 5 Ahsoka.
Yeah, I don't hear Padme saying this, even after the events that occur in this episode.
Right.
And we can kind of talk more about that definitely at the end. I have a few opinions on Padme in this episode, for sure.
Yeah, this may even be like beyond Clone Wars Ahsoka.
Right, yeah, like maybe like E.K. Johnson's book Ahsoka, right?
Yeah, or
Rebels Ahsoka.
Rebels Ahsoka, or Clone Wars Season 7, you know,
well, yeah,
which isn't out yet, you know.
Right. Just making assumptions about how Season 7 will play out. But
I'm just imagining that she's a little more mature at that time. You know, she's already gone through her normal Clone Wars story arc and has moved on to the next thing. So, but yeah,
I'm just waiting to see that tube top return, just to fuck with all of us.
Like a metal tube top.
Oh God, dear God, no. But yeah, I'll go with Ahsoka for this one.
Sure, cool.
Moving on, the newsreel for this one is pretty straightforward. Again, just explaining the Clone Wars in very general terms. I feel like they're even showing footage and clips that we have seen in other basic overall newsreels, right?
Oh, they totally are. Like, there's a shot in this newsreel of some clone troopers like carrying a clone on a stretcher onto
That's exactly the shot I was thinking of. Yep, that's precisely the shot I was thinking of.
We have seen this in an episode. We have seen this in 2 or 3 newsreels.
Yeah.
So we definitely do have some recycling going on. One thing I did want to bring up is as far as time frame goes, this is it's 21 BBY, but the Wikipedia page specifically says that this takes place about 16 months after the Battle of Geonosis. So 59 episodes into the Clone Wars, and we're about 16 months into this war.
Okay.
So usually it's just kind of here's the year, you know.
And then anywhere within the span of that year.
Right.
Which is a big span.
Right. So I think when we started this thing, Ahsoka was like 14, so she is potentially even like 16 years old now.
Right.
So she's aged a year or 2. But yeah, about a year, almost a year and a half in is what we're looking at. So
okay.
I thought that was a little nice tidbit of info to throw out there.
Yeah, indeed. The only real bit of information we get from the newsreel is that we get Padme trying to slow down military spending and stop more troops from being created, which is basically the plot of the previous episode. Jumping into this episode, there are some funky overlap issues to some degree. Just jumping right into it, we get Padme talking on a holocom to another senator who is very vocal in not helping her out with whatever bill she's trying to have happen in the Senate. We cut to Uncle Anno, Anaconda Farr, who is still optimistic that they'll be okay even without these certain votes.
Yeah, he tells her, we did lose that one senator, the Ithorian senator, I don't remember what his name is, but he's like, we lost one vote, but everybody's going to be on our side after they hear your speech. Now, this stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. And let me just explain the speech really quick, and then we can talk about the speech. So, yeah, Padme goes to the Senate floor to have a speech in which she explains that if they were to increase clone production, it would mess up their finances, essentially, and only prolong the war. So they need to put a stop to it, and she's asking to have a vote for the resolution that is on the Senate floor.
Yes.
So the thing I want to bring up is that in the previous episode, she asks for the Senate to defeat a bill that is on the Senate floor.
Mm-hmm.
I had questions about whether or not this was supposed to be the same speech. I personally do not and will not accept that this is supposed to be the same speech, even though we've had this issue of crisscrossing canon before, right?
Yeah. So I don't think it is. I don't think it's the same thing. Here's what I think happened.
Mm-hmm.
This episode is season 2, episode 15.
Right.
With also like a mid-production season 2. It's 210 as far as production goes. Now, the last 2 episodes that we saw are early, like first third of season 3. Okay.
Yeah.
I think what they did is they kind of did like a dual-ish prequel, kind of expanding on the Senate stuff and whatnot, and placed it in the timeline before this episode. Mm-hmm. But what we get is the last episode, Pursuit of Peace, that we saw last week, right? There is a bill on the floor, and that bill is to... So I think 2 weeks ago we had like bank deregulation bill that passed, and then it was like everybody was voting on expanding the clone army, right?
Yep.
Producing more clones. And Padme wanted that to fail. So that passed. So now what she's doing is she's presenting like another bill that would, I guess, go in opposition to the bill that was already passed.
Right. See, that's what confused me.
And so then she's going to go before the Senate and give this big oration about why they don't need to do that. But then last week we saw her give a speech because Bail Organa fucking crashed his car in his multi-million-dollar garage, right?
Yep, got injured. But this week he's in attendance. He's A-okay. I'd also like to point out that last week... So between these 2 episodes... Padme in both speeches is wearing 100% the exact same outfit.
It's her Senate outfit. I think this is what she wears to the Senate.
Right. So in the last episode, she got that cut on her face, which upon watching last week's episode again to make sure I wasn't going crazy with these 2 speeches, between shots in Pursuit of Speech, that cut on her face disappears between shots, which is really funny. I only noticed upon review.
Man, we're doing our job.
Right. But it's only in the long shots. Like, you really got to stop it and look real close. So in all of the close-up shots, she has like 3 or 4 little scratches under her left eye. It's there in most shots, any medium to close-up shots, but anytime you see like the whole platform from a distance, no cut at all.
Can you see it in the hologram?
I didn't double check that part. I was really just trying to make sure the outfit was the same, or like if they're using the same models and all that stuff. Especially being that there would be like a year and some in between. So March 12th, we're looking at December, so later in the year for Pursuit of Peace. So yeah, maybe about just under a year in between productions on both of these episodes.
Yep.
But yeah, so I was so confused by the start of this episode. Like I was so disorientated right off the bat about where we were, what we were doing. As you have summarized, deregulation of banks. No more new clones. Then no more new clones again. Like
it was deregulation of banks. Then it was spend the money from the banks for new clones, and now it's don't make new clones. Instead, we need to use that money for other things and concentrate on diplomacy again.
So she gets some applause in this speech. I do want to note that there is one group of people that I did not stop to see what they were, but they have a sort of Hail Hydra double arm up. It's a mix between Hail Hydra and O'Doyle Rules.
I saw this.
Double fist pumping happening.
I saw this, and if you go back to episode 1, The Phantom Menace, right?
Yeah.
When Padme goes before the Senate and she's like, I demand that we resolve this attack on my sovereignty now, and if the Senate can't do it, then, or if the Chancellor can't do it, then I propose new leadership as an order, and I propose a vote of no confidence. Like, this is what the people, this is what the Senate is doing. Yeah. So this is like a yay vote.
Yeah.
In this universe, this is what it is.
Yeah, it's just fun to see duplicated here, especially with a lot more time passed. Maybe I'll rewatch all of the Star Wars movies before we head into Star Wars Celebration, but we shall see.
You're run out of time for that one, buddy.
We got a couple of weeks from time of recording here. Yeah. But anyway, so anything else to be said about this speech here?
No, basically my note is that the beginning of this episode feels like a repeat of the last 2 episodes.
Definitely. Yeah.
So
she is done. She exits her hover chamber deck thingy box. Yep. We get a Senator Medici who stops her and compliments her on her performance, though he stops her and is like, I didn't mean as a compliment, so I don't know. He's just being a dick.
Yeah, he's basically like, great job, douchebag.
Right. So Padme's like, whatever, and then goes back to, is it her office? So then we get Padme, Bail, Far, we get a Lolo, Purs, another Rodian, and then Mon Mothma are all there, and they're all having drinks, and they're all celebrating. They're like, yeah, you did a good speech. That was freaking awesome.
Yep.
But then we get Senator Bertoni, the Kaminoan, just crashes the party like an asshole.
I will say, I think this is the first time that you hear Kaminoan spoken, and they say it a couple times in this episode. Because I know that you and I had talked about, like, is it Kaminoan? Is it Kaminoan? Is it, and probably it's both. It's all the above. It's whatever. Yeah. But Anakana Far does call her out as being Kaminoan. He's like, oh, well, you being tough Kamino lady, of course you want more clones, yada, yada, yada. Why don't you back off and get out of here and go back to where you belong or whatever. I don't know.
we do get confirmation from Far that the Caminos pushed/bartered their way to a seat on the Senate after it was discovered that they were producing clones.
Or
even though nobody
discovered that they were in existence in general.
That as well, yes. So, that's how they got a seat on the Senate. Apparently, you can barter your way in, which I found interesting.
Yeah, it's like Boeing strong arming their way into representation in the United States government.
Yeah, for better or for worse. So, let's see. Bertoni, while crashing a party, I might say, I'm gonna really pick on this point because I just think it's really funny. She crashes a party she was definitely not invited to. She accuses them of being separatists. So she crashes somebody else's house party and goes, "Nah, y'all the separatists. What y'all gonna do? This is my house."
I thought it made sense from Go ahead.
It's just, and then it's just like, it's like you go to somebody else's party and then go, "You's a bitch," and then they're like, "Yo, this is my house," and then you go, "No, it ain't. This is my house," when it's definitely not your house, Like, and then you're trying to kick them out of their own house, sort of situation. Like, this is how I saw Bertoni acting, right?
See, I totally read it a little bit differently. Like, the way that I read it is that she comes in to, congratulations on your grand oration and your copious cheers that you brought forth, right? And then she's like, you guys remind me of separatists. Like, you're trying to have fewer clones. Like, do you want the separatists to win? Is that what you guys are? You separatist sympathizers? And she's just like taunting them.
Right.
And I think that she just gets a kick out of it.
Right. Basically, the equivalent today would be like Ocasio-Cortez, just whatever she says. Could be anything. Like, "Hey, I want clean drinking water for Flint." And then somebody just goes, "You fucking socialist." Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, we're just trying to make sure kids aren't drinking lead, okay? Like,
hey, lead-free water is neither life, liberty, nor pursuit of happiness, so...
It doesn't fit into any of those categories, I would guess.
nor property, so,
Right.
buzz off.
So that's basically how I saw Bertoni here applied to today terms. Padme and Lolo are like, "Yo, we just want peace, okay, bitch? Like, that's all we want, right? Like, how can you not back peace?" So Far is like, "Yo, bitch, you gotta leave."
Yeah, he totally telephone tough guys her out of the room, and she straight up backs her way out. And then at that point, Uncle Ano comes back to the little cheers party and basically laments about his past transgressions, is what my note says. Is I think Padme's like, "Hey, good for you. Thanks for sticking up for me and saying the right thing." And he's like, "Yeah, I wish I would have realized what the right thing to say was and would have done it sooner."
Yeah, as all people after time will do. But all the same, they continue celebration. They all get some nice little cocktails poured. They all take a drink. I will say, is how I will phrase that for now.
Yeah.
And
everybody cheers. Sip some champagne or something.
They's getting the party turned, okay?
Right.
So then, as the libations are being had, Far grasps his chest and goes down. Things are not looking good.
He says, "Oh no, my heart," and falls down. And Padme looks at him and goes, "Oh no, his heart."
I'm not gonna lie. I'm only laughing because it's a very serious moment, and I'm not really sure how else they could have played this, but it does play off awkward.
Yeah.
It plays off very awkward. Then so Padme's like, "His heart, somebody call for help," and then Mon Mothma runs off. And then there's a way 2 quick fade cross dissolve into an overhead establishing shot of a casket, and it's definitely his funeral. Like, there is no room to breathe here.
It doesn't get any less awkward either, because this funeral, super awkward.
Super weird. Super weird.
We do have some blue Senate guards that are kind of doing a Star Wars 21 gun salute without the shooting, but definitely with kind of some heel tap marching. Yeah. And we get a random Rhodian that I didn't recognize giving the eulogy here.
Right.
I didn't take any notes on the eulogy, so it's really nothing of note.
Awkward. Awkward all around. That's all I got. Awkward all around.
Palpatine's there, the Scythorian senator that didn't vote in their favor is there as well. And the coolest thing about this is that after the eulogy, the top of the casket, which was transparent, just like turns opaque, and then the casket just floats into a Corellian Corvette and takes off, and see you later.
Goes back to Rhodia. Back to Rhodia for him. We do get a little scene of Padme talking to Lolo, and Lolo is like, he was my mentor, and I don't know what I'm gonna do without his guidance. Blah blah blah. Pretty quickly, they are told that they are being summoned to Chancellor Palpatine's office. When they show up, there's a whole bunch of other senators hanging out there.
Yes, we get our first teleportation in this episode, and let me tell you why I'm bringing this up. You see most people leave, and then it's just Bail Organa standing there, and Padme turns around. This is when she's talking to Lolo. And then this a Senate guard comes up and says, hey, Palpatine wants you in his office. So they leave, there's like a wipe to them in the hallway, and they walk into Palpatine's office. Bail Organa is already like standing there like he's been there waiting on him,
Yeah, they're all hanging out.
This isn't the last time that this happens in this episode, where somebody was somewhere and then all of a sudden, like, they're somewhere else.
They're where they need to be. So while we're there, we get introduced to Inspector Tandivo.
We have seen him before.
Yes.
What episode was
I'm not going to lie, I don't remember. I know we're acquainted with him.
I think it was Sphere of Influence when Ralph from Cake Boss was on the show. So I think Ralph was talking about him.
So we get Tandivo kind of throwing out various accusations that Farr was murdered. And Padme's like, murdered? Like, where are you getting this information from? He's like, well, he was poisoned. That's how, because he was killed instantly with poison.
Yeah, he's very dramatic in his reveal of what's going on, and paces about the room. And I'm gonna
try and rush through the scene because I wrote that the scene goes on for far too fucking long.
Yeah, I've only got one note on it, and it is that he says, "I'll stick to inspecting, you stick to senating," and with like air quotes.
Yeah.
So the only other things that we kind of get out is that he has theories about his secrets coming out and that political opponents wanted to kill him, blah, blah, blah. Padme and Organa are like, no, he didn't have any secrets. And Devo brings up this good point. It's like, you guys are politicians. You guys all have secrets. Like, but yeah, hilarious. So as he says, he will carry out this investigation. Padme, don't do anything to fuck this shit up. What does she do pretty much in the next scene? She tries to figure out who would want to kill Farr and goes off to investigate this alone. Mothma's like, yo, don't go checking this shit out on your own. Have Organa go with you. And she's like, sure. Like, she kind of brings up like this kind of defensive point where she's like, I don't need a babysitter. And it's like, no, you're stepping in some big shit here. Like, somebody was murdered and you're going to
murdered and you're going to try to fucking
you're going to try and Nancy Drew the shit? Like, what are you doing? So
Nancy Drew, that's a good comparison there.
So, then the next scene I think is even more fucked up. We get a cut to Senator Dietschy's office, and Bertoni is there, and we essentially get Padme and Bail Organa going, y'all motherfuckers murdered Far.
Right. And Dichi is just like laughing his ass off.
Like, can we discuss? It is a bold move to just show up again. So what Bertoni did to Padme, she's essentially doing in reverse. She shows up at their party, but instead of just like trying to say some random shit like, oh, y'all some Nazis or whatever, she just goes straight for the, you guys are some motherfucking murderers. That is some fucked up shit, okay?
That's pretty ballsy.
I feel like I'm cursing a lot more in this episode. I do not know why, but
it happens.
So clearly both Dichi and Bertoni are like, us murderers? No way. Definitely not. Like, we both respected Far. And they bring up this point where Far was saying some dumbass shit that ended up helping their cause because it got more donations to their cause or something like that based on...
That's Bertoni's thing. She says, basically every time Anakana Far opened his mouth, it was, support for our viewpoint. So why would we want to kill him? Dichi is the one that says that he respected Far, and Bertoni says, for the record, I definitely did not respect him. And then she just pours herself a drink, and she's just sitting there sipping whiskey or wine or whatever the hell it is. Dichi brings up this secret meeting that he had, and his verbiage on it, he calls it a clandestine meeting under the cover of darkness.
Yep.
Is what it is.
Yep.
I think it's a pretty appropriate description.
Yeah. So then Padme and Bail go to check that shit out. Pretty quickly, they are attacked by some hooded figure.
Immediately.
Yeah. And by attacked, I mean the hooded figure moves a giant shipping container above them and then tries to drop it, but Padme sees it above them, pushes Bail out of the way. She jumps out of the way. She starts
got some
chasing.
Fucking Jedi reflexes at this point.
Yeah, she starts chasing after this hooded figure. Here's where I have some problems with the characterization of Padme in this episode in particular.
Okay.
Padme is one of the best shots in the entire Star Wars series when looking at least the original 6 movies.
Okay.
Right? Leia would be the next. Like, it's Leia and Padme, those two together.
Okay.
When they shoot, they almost never miss.
Right.
And then here, because there's only one person and that person can't be taken down quickly, Padme never hits.
It's dark and there's an elevation change and somebody just tried to drop a fucking shipping container on her, and Bail Organa is like a lead weight that she's fucking dragging around. So
I like that in this situation, this like video game scenario, that Bail is the annoying hostage that you need to protect from the zombies. We've all been on those rescue missions, those those partner missions where the other person does literally nothing
except for run in the wrong direction into danger.
Into the zombies. Yeah, I'm glad. Side note: recently in video games, they will make very clear that you do not need to worry about the person you're there to protect. They can protect themselves. I forgot what game said that. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, thank you. Because I remember playing like Resident Evil 4 and frickin' Ashley, the president's daughter that Leon had to protect. I just remember kept running away. And they're like, you're leaving Ashley behind. I'm like, I'm walking the exact direction I'm supposed to go. Where the fuck is she? Like,
she's supposed to be following you.
Right. So anyways, yeah, I just found it just slightly odd. Like, I understand from a storytelling standpoint. It just really bothers me that we have to have these episodes that kind of bring her shot accuracy down.
Why don't you just not, she just doesn't have a fucking gun on her.
The what?
She just doesn't just write the episode so that Padme doesn't have a blaster.
Right, yeah. But then they make like this weird joke about it where they're like, oh, we're here on a mission that could get dangerous. So then Padme like pulls out her pistol. And then Bail like pulls out his, and they like have this like little moment. It's like, hey, we both brought our pistols. How cute.
His totally looks like this laser gun toy that was released in like the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a laser tag thing. It was white, and the top of it had like a red lens on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this or not. That's totally what his looks like.
His, to me, looked like the silver PP7 pistol from the GoldenEye video games.
Okay.
Where, because it's like the N64 rendering was like so low res that you kind of had like a silver block of gun.
Right.
That's what his reminded me of. Hers didn't remind me of anything. But anyway, so we get this chase. The killer eventually does escape because another container gets dropped. Bale falls over the edge. Padme needs to go back and save Bale.
Can I talk about the second container that falls briefly?
Mm-hmm.
This attacker, we don't know who it is yet, right?
Nope.
Pushes like a button or flips a lever or something, and this actuator arm just like pushes this shipping container off of, they're double stacked, right?
Yeah.
It pushes like the top shipping container off, and then it just like bounces and rolls at Bale. Bale gets knocked off the edge, but like, what a terrible, like, this is a shitty
like,
control
what is
function.
it supposed to do? Like, what is it designed
irresponsible,
to do?
right? Exactly. This is like the senator squishing lever or something.
Right. It doesn't hit anybody in the bottom, but we do see it land on the ground, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not a shot that I really needed, honestly. But we get like
no,
that.
There's like a lady that like gasps and like clutches her chest, and there's like a droid that probably shits its pants or something, you know?
Yeah, I think there's like a Rhodian that like turns around and is like, what was that? Like, there's a giant shipping container there, bro. Like, did you not see that? Do you not see that?
I could have definitely used like the drunk guy on the ground, like looking at his bottle and tossing it over his shoulder or something. Like, that can't be happening. Nobody would be that irresponsible to have a button that just fucking knocks a shipping container off the side of the dock.
We get
that's
that good old
40
like
stories up.
We get like a good old airplane references where it's like, I picked a bad day to quit methamphetamines.
Right.
So, with the attacker gone, police are there, and Devo shows up, and I was like, wow, how nice of you guys to be here and, you know, do the thing that I told you guys exactly to do, which is not interfere with my investigation. And then Padme is like, well, like, we got information, and then we came here to check it out. And then Devo's like, well, I'm glad you guys told me about this information, and then I could have investigated it properly through the proper channels. Oh, wait, you guys didn't, because you guys are fucking assholes.
I love the way that he starts this conversation. He goes, Padme, are you deaf? And
Right.
she's like, what? And he's like, obviously you have a hearing problem because I told you. And then goes into the spiel. He's super melodramatic,
But he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong at all.
To me, he is definitely not wrong. He is definitely dramatic.
His character is played well.
Yes.
He's voiced by Tom Kenny, and I get some SpongeBob vocal vibes out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And even like his character design is like his shoulders down to his hips are pretty rectangular,
Square-ish, yeah. It's
and
like the squircle, the squared out circle or circled out square, sort of thing. Because he's got a big head too. He's got a big ass forehead for sure. Like his eyes are a lot lower set on the frame of his head.
Yep,
It was very interesting to see.
I wonder if this guy's supposed to be human.
I assume so, but I could be wrong. You take a look. But yeah, so Devo again tells Padme, like, just let me do my job. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. You go back to senatoring. So, let's see. What do we got? So, Devo puts her and other... Oh, no, I'm skipping a scene. Where am I?
Padme.
Yes.
So
they go
Padme
check
is
on.
like,
Yeah, they figure that Dichi must have set them up because nobody else would have. Only 4 people would know where they went. So they're assuming Dichi is the one that set them up because Dichi is the one that brought up the docks.
Yeah, Padme gets the idea from Devo because Devo's like, you obviously let the killer know that you're onto them, and then as he's talking, Padme's like, we let the killer know, and Devo's like, yeah, I just said that, you let the killer know. And that's when Padme makes the connection that the killer may have set them up, so that leads her to Dichi, and she and Bale just leave.
Right. And go straight to Dichi's office.
Devo's like, hey, you can't leave. Like, at first he's like, hey, you can't be here. And then now he's like, hey, you can't leave. This is an active crime scene. And
they're witnesses.
Whatever.
Yeah. So he gives up. We get to Dichi's office. Again, Padme comes into his office and starts spewing shit and is like, Dichi, you guys tried to kill us and blah, blah, blah. And then she walks up to the desk. Dichi doesn't say anything. She turns his chair around, and he is dead. D-E-D, dead with a knife to the heart.
And teleportation number 2, because Devo, right behind them.
Yep, just there. Just hanging out. So, with another murder at hand, Devo then puts various senators, under protective custody. They are all hanging out in Padme's office. There's Padme. There's Lolo. We get Mon Mothma in there. Bale is in there. I think there was a few others I don't remember, but those are our major players.
It's basically like anybody with a speaking line in this.
Right. Yeah. And they're all like in their senator cloaks and stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in there, and Lolo is like, no, you can't keep me in here. Like, I don't, like, we're free to walk about and do our business. And Devo's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Stay in here because a killer's on the loose. What is wrong with you? And Devo is like, or Lolo is like, well, you're just making us an easy target because now we're all in this one room and the killer can just kill us all. And Devo, again, dryly says, well, there's so many of you guys in here, you can't kill all of you.
It's unlikely that they would make it past my security defenses, and even if they did, probably wouldn't be able to kill all of you.
Right, exactly.
Therefore, your statement is incorrect.
So, that said, we get another conversation where Devo asks them who else knew what they were at the docks, and Padme makes the realization if it's not Dichi, then the only other person in the room was Bertoni. So then Devo goes to Bertoni's office. Bertoni is not there. We cut back to Padme's office. Lolo comes rushing back and is like, yo, Bertoni attacked me. And she's all freaking out. She's all panicking. So then we get an arrest of Bertoni, who is denying murdering Farr whatsoever or attacking Lolo. She has no play in this, according to her, says her, as there is no political gain for her to do so. Devo tries to put all the proof on her and tries to get her to confess to both crimes, essentially.
So here's my notes on kind of this series of events.
Yes.
It is cut, talking. Bertoni collected by guards. Devo Sherlock Holmes the shit out of this office.
Yeah, sort of. He makes the attempt to. So he brings up some good pieces of evidence. Bertoni is the only person that knows where Padme and Bale were going. There's like 3 things, right? Like, and then they have they have evidence that the poison used could only be Kaminoan accessed and made, so she would have access to that, and it only affected Rhodians.
And then he says motive means opportunity, makes the connections, and then places Bertoni under arrest. Padme, however, is listening to this whole thing. So Devo's Sherlock Holmes-ness, although logically valid, is incorrect. And Padme puts it together. She figures it out. She's like, well, if it's Rhodian-based poison, then Lolo would have died too.
Right. And Padme is like, well, we all drank it, right? Lolo, you took a sip. And then immediately Padme's like, oh, no, girl. You didn't take a sip, did you? Aw, shit. So,
Lolo's response is, "You're right, but I should have pretended to," and then takes Padme hostage.
Weird response, yeah.
Yeah.
So, with this twist revealed, I will say that I saw Bertoni and Dici as red herrings pretty much straight off the bat. Knew it wasn't going to be them. Pretty quickly, like, her running into that room confirmed to me that Lolo was the true antagonist of the episode.
I knew something was going on, and I forgot that it was Lolo. I definitely figured it out, like, in this scene, but, like, you know, with her, when she leaves and then comes back and is all like, "Oh, woe is me, I was attacked," and yada, 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 and I was like, yeah, it's totally her.
It's her, yeah. Like, that for sure gives it away. But, yeah, so then Lolo pulls a gun on Padme. The gun here reminded me of the little cricket from Men in Black, for sure.
The noisy cricket.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen this gun many times. I feel like it's a design that kind of keeps coming back up. I feel like we have referenced Men in Black on this show many times.
I feel the same.
So, anyways, so her motive, Lolo's motive, is that Far brought the war to Rhodia, and that he was being weak in his opposition to the war. And Padme is like, "Yo, the dude made a mistake. That happens. But killing him is not a solution."
Yeah, this is really weird because this is referencing, like, Bombad Jedi, right?
Right.
Where, I don't even know. Like, I guess because Anaconda had made a deal with the Separatists for protection of the planet, but then Padme had come in to, like, negotiate, like, supplies and shit brought in. It's just, it's weird.
Yeah,
I'll just put it that way.
It's weird reasoning. Because also, as we've seen time and time again on this show, even as much as a planet or a community may try to avoid the war always just ends up spilling over borders that it may not have even intended to. We have had this play out many times, you know. So it's weird that a big planet such as Rhodia, that Lolo felt that the war could have been completely avoided there. But sure. So with all of this happening, Devo silently activates some police droids that are on the other side of the door that she backed up to.
Silently, but not discreetly.
Yeah. It's pretty darn clear. But the door opens, Lolo freaks out, turns around, and is like, "What the?" And then that's when Padme goes for a nice sucker punch, just right on the fucking mouth.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah.
Holds the pose, like, afterwards.
Yep.
One punch knockdown.
Yep. She is.
Holds the pose, then shakes her fist, rubs her knuckles.
Yeah. So that much resolved, we cut back to the Senate room, Senate chambers, and the bill for clone production has passed. So clones, more are being made.
Yep.
We get Padme talking to Palpatine in the hall afterwards, and tells her that reinforcements are basically the only way to ensure peace.
Yeah, he he claims to be unhappy, like he didn't want this bill to go the way that it did.
Right.
But then he says, maybe it's good because we are increasing our security at the Senate. Mm-hmm. And at this time, like, I actually paid attention to who was on screen, and there's like Bail, Padme, Palpatine, Orn Frita, and like 14 fucking Senate guards. So he says, we got more security here. That just mean how could we do this without putting more troops on the front line, essentially? Wouldn't we look like hypocrites otherwise? And then the closing statement of this episode, he says, "You see, the victory of the clone army for now is the only thing that can lead us to peace." And Padme and Bail are gonna just kind of stop, and Palpatine, his entourage, just keep on walking down the hall, and they turn around and watch him go, and then we cue loud music, and
Indeed.
Iris into black.
Yep, straight into the credits. George Lucas's name pops right up.
So we talked about the timeline of when, what happened as far as, like, chronology goes. Mm-hmm. What would have come after this in release order is Cat and Mouse, which is the first episode chronologically.
Right.
I can just imagine, like, how big of a fucking mind fuck this would be going from, like, this to jumping all the way back to that. It's a real convoluted way to watch things when you're...
I'm not going to lie. Upon my first viewing, in which I just Netflix, next episode, Netflix, next episode, Netflix,
right.
next episode.
You don't know the difference?
Yep. Just didn't pay attention. Like, I could tell clearly, like, things were getting shuffled,
Right. Because, like, later down the line, we see...
Like, Dichi's back.
And Anna Far's back.
Right, and Far's back. So, yeah, clearly, like, I knew things were getting shuffled, but it was just, like, more of a... Okay, I know this vaguely takes place before Far dying, right? Like, this episode of Far clearly takes place some point before that. But as to the specifics of, like, shuffling Senate murders, and then, like, Cat and Mouse, right? Like, the apparent jump isn't as big upon my memory of my first viewing, like 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Right.
Because I guess I just thought that somewhere in Cat and Mouse they talk about it being like the beginning of the war or something to that effect.
Possible, but all the same,
it's been a long time since I've seen that one though.
Yeah, all the same, it definitely just is like, here's another adventure, right?
Yeah,
like, here you go. Just make sense of this best you can, but here's the adventure, right?
And then this episode was preceded by, like, that triptych of episodes that we had based on Mandalore.
Right.
Whatever it was. The Duchess of Mandalore and the other two. I don't remember what those were. Whatever they were.
So, yeah. Like, again, like I said, so you would have just seen that trilogy of episodes, and you come into this one, you're like, okay, great. Like, whatever we got. So, yeah, it doesn't play as funky as you might think. But yeah, there are some obvious ones, like people dying, coming back. But really, especially if you're trying to, like, because these seasons are traditional 22 episode seasons, right? By the time you're like 40 episodes down, you kind of, at least for me, my memory of things just start melding a little bit, especially when you're binge watching this shit, right?
I can understand that.
So, yeah, it's whatever. Like, I'm glad we're doing the order that we are, especially because we're taking a much deeper dive and we sit and we talk about it for, an hour and some. But yeah, when you're just like finishing a 22-minute episode and you then, before you realize it, 3 hours later, you've watched 6 of them, right? Like,
yeah.
They're one long story, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know, and Lorenzo, I rewatched all of Star Wars Resistance before doing our Resistance recap, and I did it in like 2 days, and after the first day, I was like, it took me like all day, I'm like 10 episodes in or 14 episodes in or something, and then I was like, fuck, I got like 6 or 9 episodes left. I'm like, that seems like a lot. But then I was like, oh, it's only like 2-3 hours. Like,
right.
That's not that much,
Right. You breeze through it, especially these 22-minute episodes.
They go pretty quick.
So do you have anything about this episode specifically?
I've got some info about Mr. Tan Devo.
Go for it.
His description in the Clone Wars Encyclopedia is the conceited inspector, which is interesting. So he is human, for one. His allegiance to the Republic, homeworld Coruscant. His weapons are A-43 Hushabye pistols. His talents are running investigations and filing police reports. One thing, I thought he looked short in this episode. Like, he's about Padme's height, right? But he's substantially shorter than Bail Organa.
Right.
But his height is listed at 5'11". This is taller than me.
Right.
Like, 5'11" isn't that short.
Yeah.
I would say it's kind of average, maybe.
Range, yeah.
That's average, right?
I would say like 5'6" to 5'8" is average. You know, when taking like everybody into account. You know.
Interesting.
Once you're closer to like 5'11" is 1 inch shy of 6 feet.
Right. Like, I'm 5'9", and I don't consider myself tall.
Right, that's
or short.
Average height, yeah.
Like, I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like average height, you know.
Yeah.
5'11" is like you're on the taller end of things.
But he definitely looks in this episode to be a little short guy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, apparently not.
I don't know about that.
But the other things that it says about him is that, you know, he carries multiple data pads full of reports. The stripes on his uniform indicate hard-earned rank, and his hairstyle shows that he is hardly a slave to fashion.
Oh boy.
That's all I got on him. So yeah, I don't really have any other comments about this episode.
I kind of said my piece as we went along for this one.
I did have one generic update from something that we talked about last week or the week before, and that was about how many senators there are in the Senate. And I think what I found is like a questionably canon number that was delivered by George Lucas, and it's something like 21,703.
Okay.
So that is the estimated number of senators. Oh, wait, 24,372.
Very cool.
There you go. And that came from George Lucas in 1977.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
like I said,
questionably canon.
Questionably canon. I did see another guy that had done the math on like how many of these floating Senate pods there would be, and it was somewhere in the 2,000 range. But then also, Padme and Bail and Mon Mothma, like they're not before the Republic turns into the Empire, when they're kind of getting their little group of dissented senators together to develop what will be the rebels later, right? They come up with the delegation of 2,000, which is like, I think what that is that it's like the group of senators that want the war to end and continue and whatever. So for there only to be like 2,400 pods and like 2,000 of them are like on Padme's side, like that doesn't seem right. So I think she'd be able. Yeah, I think she would be able to get 10% of everybody on board with her. So maybe around that 20,000 is accurate.
Okay,
that's a lot of fucking senators, though, man.
Right, for sure. But
anyway, that's all I got.
On. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you got?
I give this one a thumbs down. Like, it's fine. Tan Devo is the best part of this episode. I really like every scene he's in where he's just kind of like walking around. Like, I see SpongeBob Sherlock Holmes as Tan Devo.
Okay, yeah.
And he is entertaining. He is to the point. He delivers his information in a way that I find interesting and fun, right? He's an animated character, and I don't mean that because this is an animated TV show, but if this was a live action, he was portrayed in the same manner. Like, he just has an animated performance about him.
Yeah.
In his
behavior and his physicality.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the best thing about this episode is his character. Other than that, I can kind of take it or leave it. I do feel like this is the third time we've seen a very similar story
Right.
in a row, and it's kind of gone on for too long, in my opinion.
Right. I also gave this a thumbs down, and I think I messaged you. We were talking about other things, and then I was realizing that I was just missing parts of this episode because, and it wasn't your fault. It was just more of, I was watching it and I was like taking notes, but then I would kind of zone out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I was like, no, this can't be good. So I remember like watching the beginning of this episode 3 times, or sections of it. I kept having to go back, right? So it's not an awful episode. It just, I had trouble keeping attention, really. It just, the pacing's off, pacing's weird, the way the story's told. I do like Tan Devo, but even then there's still a little too much of him at times.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wrote, like he has too many words when few would suffice, even for what they were going for with his, the humor that they were going for there. I appreciate the humor that we got from Tan Devo. I like the style. I like the performance. I agree with you. He is one of the rare animated, more physical characters that we get when it comes to delivery, and especially with Tom Kenny's delivery of dialogue. I really enjoy that. But yeah, man, we've gotten these weird murder mysteries on this.
At first, I thought it was like, is this an episode of Clue? And then, is it an episode of
like anything
like
Agatha
said,
Christie
Nancy
related?
Drew?
Yeah, Nancy
then,
Drew, Agatha Christie. Take your fucking pick, right?
I
would
like,
rather.
The end, is it supposed to be like a Sherlock Holmesy thing?
Right.
But like, it's just,
It takes these pieces, but doesn't do anything with any of them. Like, it does nothing with any of these pieces.
yeah.
And just the weird red herrings that get thrown out there that are way too fucking obvious, in my opinion. And the awkward... The beginning just needed to be so much stronger if that is where you're going to lynch your mystery, right? If that's where you're going to start all your shit. You need to have all the players present, right? If you're going to... Like, Agatha Christie is, I think, a great example. If you're going to go for that, then freaking figure out what makes Agatha Christie good, right?
Uh-huh.
She makes the players very clear up front, and in fact, makes the mystery even deeper if you get shit like Murder on the Orient Express. Everybody's on that train, right?
Right. You don't, and you don't have people just like
walking
like
in
the
and
two
out.
of us are just we're gonna leave for now, and then we'll go do this other thing, and then we'll be back, and then yeah.
Like, I would have loved if it was like a locked room murder mystery, right?
I think that would have been.
I'm
better.
all for that, but no. Instead, we get the Senate of 20,000 people, but no, it's Dici or Bertoni. Fuck you both. Right?
Right. It's 2 out of 2,000.
Right.
Or 20,000
20,000,
right?
Yeah. And it's really weird that you kind of then get both Padme and Devo kind of taking on the role of detective, when really, again, taking Agatha Christie as a model, you only need one. You get one to start that chain of thinking. And then you got to freak everybody else out, right? Because that would have been, clearly that comparison was there, but now that I'm like playing it out more in my head, I would have loved to get more scenes of all of them in a room with Devo kind of throwing out random accusations. But then what is nice about, say, Murder on the Orient Express is that when Poirot is kind of saying potential motives as to why the murder could occur, right? Like, everybody is on that train, so you're gauging reactions across the train, right?
And you've only got a specific amount of time until the train gets to where it's going.
Right. But instead here, it's just, he's just saying it to the wind, or just to Padme, or Padme is off doing her own thing. So
there's literally twice in this episode where he is mumbling to himself walking around.
Right. So I would have loved more to get a scene with Bertoni and Lolo and Dichi all in the same room with Padme and Bale while Devo is doing his thing, just so we can gauge. Like, if I think that would have played out a lot better if you start planting information that way and get Lolo looking concerned, right? Quote unquote concerned, right? Like, really, like, at first viewing, that concern is like, oh God, who could kill Far that way? But then upon second viewing, it's like, oh shit, is he on to me? Right? Like, that's exactly what we need in this episode, and it's completely missing.
Right.
So yeah, it's not an awful episode, just not good enough to be memorable, honestly.
I would like to add that Bail Organa's character seems to kind of jump back and forth as far as usefulness goes.
Yeah. I
in
agree.
pursuit of peace, Padme was like, "Oh, nobody can convince all of these senators except for Bail. Like, Bail is this great fucking speech giving senator, right?
Yeah.
He's like the grand orator of her cause, and he can get up and he can talk and he can convince people. And then, like, this week, he's like a tag along, you know, and he's like an anchor that she's dragging along just because Mon Mothma didn't want her to go alone.
Right.
So
yeah, I completely agree.
I do have one other tidbit of information about Devo before we close this out.
Yeah.
As we talked about with Ralph a month or so ago, Devo unfortunately retired to Alderaan and was subsequently blown up there. So that's where he met his demise. His grandson became a police commissioner on the New Republic planet of Hosnian Prime, so I can only imagine that he met a similar fate.
Well, damn.
So, yeah, it kind of sucks to be him.
Now, that said, is Alderaan a good catch-all for, hey, we don't know what these characters would have done at any point after A New Hope, so why don't we just all put these random characters on Alderaan?
I think so.
Clear them out?
I think it's a pretty easy one.
All right, just throwing that out there. But
yeah, or do you throw them on a fucking desert planet somewhere, or
Sarlacc pit, and you go.
Something.
Right. So that said, if you have any comments, questions, to reach out to us, you can always email us at notthenerdspodcast@gmail.com. You can reach out to Kevin. He's in charge of our Twitter at NotTheNerds. I occasionally update our Facebook at Not The Nerds Podcast. We are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. Please like, subscribe, review. We're also available on YouTube. Audio only goes up on there. As always, we want to give a shout out to Kevin Warren, who put together the artwork at the beginning, or our cover art that appears on iTunes and such places. You can reach out to him at They Call Me KDub on Twitter. I'd like to also give a shout out to Lindsay at strangefantasymusic@gmail.com. She's the one who put together the jingle that plays at the beginning and end of each episode. So, yeah.
Yeah, so next week we're jumping back to Season 3, Episode 12. So last week was Season 3, Episode 11. Next week is Season 3, Episode 12. That's called The Night Sisters. And from there, we're rolling all the way through the end of Season 3. Senate Murders officially closes out Season 2 for us. So we're done with Season 1. We're done with Season 2.
Fantastic.
We're gonna, from here moving forward, we're going to roll through the rest of Season 3 and then go from there. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Until then, I've been Lorenzo Fon.
Kevin Horde here.
He's not the nerd you're looking for.
Bye-bye.